Welcome to First Canada's FTC Sim tutorials. This series is about how to use FTC Sim, a First Tech Challenge robot simulator created by First Canada. And this is actually the second in the series that we're going to talk about the FTC actual field, Freight Frenzy, for 2021. In the first one, we looked at how to spin the carousel, and today we're going to look at using the crane. And it's called the crane in this one. I usually refer to it as an elevator, so you might hear me use both. So I'm going to actually log in at this point. If you don't have an account, you should know that they're free. You just need to use your an email address that you have, give yourself a password, and then it's free. So if you're a coach or a teacher and you want to use this in your class or with your team, I would suggest checking out the video on how to do that so that they don't have to actually use their email addresses. But there are a couple, including the first one in this series, that explains a little bit about this. So we're going to go here to the FTC 2021. That's the field from this year. I'm going to choose FTC Field 3. And here we go. And actually, I have created, here we go. I have created one for this one. So here we see our robot. I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit just to make it a little bit easier because I'm not really here to solve the puzzle. I'm here to demonstrate how to use some of the things that are on this robot. So this robot has 4 motors. It has a motor for the back left wheel, the back right wheel. It's a motor for this little wheel that spins, that's going to spin the carousel. So if you look at that video, you can see how that works. And it has a motor to move this crane up and down, or the elevator up and down. Now we're also going to use this claw, and the claw doesn't have a motor attached. It's kind of a motor. Well, it is a motor. It's a servo, which is because it doesn't have to really lift anything that hard. It just needs to, in this case, grab something. A servo is plenty to do. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so we can go through here. So I'm going to go through this as if you've never done any of this before, but please try the other ones in the series as you can see. So the goal that I'm going to do this video is to move forward, to open the claw, to close the claw around this block, and to lift the block up. And there's a whole bunch of ways you could do that. I'm going to do it the simplest one possible. So, and I'm going to explain what these blocks do and where I got them from, so that you can see this. So whenever you start ftcsim.org and one of the puzzles or the challenges, you'll get a template or a framework for your code. And it'll have this outer framework here. You can see that's highlighted. It's purple, but it's got a yellow border around it. And it'll have some other stuff in there. One of the first things that you would want to do if you're doing this with a real robot is you would want to initialize something. And in this particular case, what we do is we initialize the left motor. I guess it's on the other side here, so that it's going to go in reverse. And that one is over here where it says actuators. So the actuators are the various motors that we have. And you can see up here, they're all saying drive left, drive left, drive left, but they have a little drop down, which you can see lists all 4 of the motors that I explained earlier. So in this particular case, it is drive left that we want to set the direction of. So that's in actuators. You can see when I go in, DC motor, and there it is there. It's the 3rd one down. So we would drag that one in, and we would change forward to reverse. Because if we don't do that, the robot's going to spin in the spot because one of them has to be reversed. And in this case, it's the left one. The other thing that we're going to do when we initialize it is we're going to set the claw to the open position. So even if we start going fast, which we're not, because we're only going down here, you can see it's half speed, 50% of the maximum speed. It will even if we go fast, with the claw open, it'll still corral this. And it's directly in front, so we didn't have to find it. We didn't have to go, I know it's directly in front. So if it was somewhere else on the floor later on, you'll have to try that for yourself. But this is a brief overview on how to do this part anyways. All right, so now on your robot, the start would start. So on a real robot, there's a 2-part start. The first thing that comes up on the controller, the driver station, it says init. You click on that and it does whatever initialization code you have. In this case, it could be really anywhere, but we're trying to keep it as true to as we can to the real robot. And then you'd press a little arrow like this one here in the circle that would start the robot going. But in this case, it does both. So it initializes and then starts it going. So this is what happens. So I'll just demonstrate. So it goes forward, picks it up, and then the crane or the elevator goes up. And that's all I'm doing. Later on, obviously, what I'd want to do is drive over here to the shipping hub and drop that block off on one of the 3 levels. And we'll get into that eventually as well. So I'm setting in the drive to move forward slowly. And then I'm saying, I think I need to go about 280 milliseconds. Really, what I want to do is I don't want to bump it, so I don't. So that's a little bit of trial and error there because I didn't really have 280 milliseconds first, but that's all it needs in this particular case. On the real floor, that'll be different, of course. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to stop it because I wanted to do a couple of things at that point. So I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to set the target position of the claw back to 0, which closes it. So normally you would say, well, aren't we setting a power? Well, a servo is a little different. So if you look at the servo over here, this is where I got it, you can see that it has some different things. So you can set the direction of the claw to go forward or backward. In this particular case, I'm just going to use the set target position, and it's going to set it at 0.5, which opens the servo, and then at 0, which closes it. And I need it just to do that for a little bit. So I'm going to get it to stop, even though I don't really need this to stop for pause for 280 milliseconds. I'm going to do that anyways. So I grab it. I then set the claw's power, the crane's power, to 0.3, which is 30% of its maximum power, for no other reason than I felt like doing it that way. Could be a number from 0 up to 1. Well, it has to be more than 0 or it wouldn't close. It wouldn't go up, I should say. But that's again in here with actuators, DC motor. Let me actually click on it this time, DC motor. And there it is there, but I would go here and I would choose crane. And I would drop it in. So I've already done that, so I'm going to drag it off to the side. And then I'm going to let it have the crane go up for a certain period of time, but then I have to stop it. So when I set a target position on things, and I could do that for the motors if I use the encoders. I'm not doing that in this case. I'm using sleep to move my program around. I could do that, but in this particular case, if I set a target position, it's going to stop when it reaches that target position. But when I set power for a motor, I need to turn that motor's power off like I've done here. And that's why I left it in over here. And that's what I've done over here to stop the crane from going up. If I don't have this one in here, the crane is just going to keep going up, and eventually that in the real world, that would be a problem. So here we see it go. So it goes, grabs it, and then goes. Now, at this point, in the game, I would want to go over here without hitting this duck and knocking it off the barcode, if I could. And I would want to drop it on one of these 3 levels. And I would get points for that. If I drop it on the level, it's represented by the duck. In this case, the duck's on the 3rd one, and that would be the top level. That would be even more points for me in autonomous. But hopefully this gives you an idea on how to do some of the things. If you haven't, this is the first time we've had this robot in here that has a claw that can open and close, and has an elevator that allows us to pick stuff up. It also has a camera, which we'll take a look at shortly, so we can see where this duck is and how we can use that information to put the block in the right place on the shipping hub. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. If you have a better solution or you have some comments that you'd like to let me know, you can contact me at pkeenan@firstinspires.org. Hope you've enjoyed this and hope you're enjoying the FTC Sim.